In the wake of September 11th, the United States and its allies have engaged in a systematic effort to counter and destroy terrorist capabilities. But are those counter-terrorism efforts proving to be counterproductive? Hello, I'm Arnold Naidu in Washington, D.C., and this is The Heat. Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, Yemen, Syria, and Somalia, all places where the United States and its allies have engaged in counter-terrorism activities. Among the enemy, Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, Islamic State, Al-Shabaab, and Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. But for all the drone strikes, enhanced interrogations, use of elite forces, local military training, and trillions of dollars spent, has the United States strategy been effective in not only eliminating radical extremists, but also changing the anti-US culture that defined them? Or conversely, has the carnage of war, now in its 14th year, emboldened jihadists and set in motion a new generation of terrorists? Among our guests, a counterterrorism expert and former British diplomat. But first, some background. Here's CCTV's Roee Ruttenberg.
It's been called a collapse in strategy. U.S. intelligence advisors coordinating drone attacks from southern Yemen, pulling out of the country in late March. This after Al-Qaeda forces overtook a town near their base. Meanwhile, Shiite Houthi fighters, who Washington believes are backed by Iran, gained further ground in Yemen. More territory now in rebel hands, as the country's American-backed president flees. Just 8 months ago, U.S. President Barack Obama hailed Yemen a successful model of America's anti-terrorism campaign.
This strategy of taking out terrorists who threaten us while supporting partners on the front lines is one that we have successfully pursued in Yemen and Somalia for years.
Good afternoon, everybody.
The White House now calls the developments in Yemen a, quote, temporary setback.
A successful counterterrorism strategy is one that will build up the capacity of the central government to have local fighters on the ground take the fight to extremists in their own country. And the United States can serve both to diplomatically offer up some political support to central governments.
I think it's reflective of a fundamental failing in what is called the counterterrorism approach.
David Sedney worked for the Pentagon under both U.S. Presidents Bush and Obama. He has resigned and says the strategy is incomplete and thus insufficient.
That approach, which involves killing people who are or may be direct threats to national security, does not look at the broader society in which things take place.
In recent years in Pakistan, the U.S. has used armed drones to target some 40 people, killing more than 1,000 others. Anti-drone protests like these draw large and usually young crowds. Analysts say most strikes target domestic buildings, often with innocent women and children inside. It's a similar story in Yemen, Somalia, and other countries. The destruction left behind often inflames anti-U.S. sentiment and perhaps further fuels the next generation of terrorists. Critics say it's because the U.S. intervenes, quote, blindly, without fully engaging the people.
I think this administration has taken a wrong turn and focused just on the military side and not on the broader state, nation, institution building side, which I think is absolutely necessary for long-term success.
And what are the consequences of that decision?
Well, the consequences are not just failed states, but states that fail even worse.
In March, the Pentagon admitted it had lost track of $500 million worth of military aid it had given to Yemeni authorities. Weapons, aircraft, equipment, now potentially in the hands of the very people Washington was trying to defeat, leaving many wondering, is counterterrorism really countering terrorism? Anand?
Thanks, Roy. That's CCTV's Roee Ruttenberg reporting. Well, joining us